The House will be in order. The first order of business is roll call. The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will record themselves present. Have all the members recorded their presence?
Looks good.
The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 65 present, 1 absent.
Oh, we'll correct that. He's here.
So it would be 66 present, 4 absent and excused. A quorum being present, the House is ready for business. The House will now advance to the second order of business, prayer by the chaplain, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. The prayer will be led by Pastor Tom Doherty, and the pledge will be led by House Page Brooklyn Burke. Will the guests in the gallery please rise?
The psalmist's prayer today from Psalms 143, verse 8. Cause me to hear your loving kindness in the morning, for in you do I trust. Cause me to know thy way in which I should walk, for I lift my soul to you. Let's pray. Loving Heavenly Father, as the psalmist prayed, I too pray today that you would help us to know the way to walk, and that you would be the guide for our steps. So many decisions are made each week in this room, and Lord, bring confidence and peace to these leaders as they listen to the voices of the people. Thank you, Lord, that we have leaders to represent us and their commitment to this cause. Be with those that may be struggling with their health. Be with Representative Henderson as he recovers. Give him strength this day. I pray that these leaders can get adequate rest that they need to in the busy times of their lives. Give them the strength that they need to move forward. Lord, I'm very grateful that we can call upon you to lead us every day as we journey through this life. I ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The House will now advance to the third order of business, approval of the journal. The House is at the third order.
February 21st, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration report that we have read and approved the House Journal of the 45th Legislative Day and recommend same be adopted as corrected. Moved by Wills, seconded by Burgoyne.
You've all heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries and the report is adopted.
Mr. Speaker,
The gentleman from District 14.
will you please put the House at ease?
House be at ease.
Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from District 26.
Mr. Speaker, you may have noticed an ever so subtle variation in attire today, some of it less subtle than others. Allow me to explain. Many of you know that my wife Linda fought cancer. She was diagnosed, had surgery, chemo, radiation, and then chemo again a year and a half later. When she underwent the second session of chemo, the children in her classes at school wore pink anything. They wore pink braces, they had pink earrings, they had pink, what do you call the little wrappers in your hair, you know?
Scrunchies.
Yeah, those too. And it was an outpouring of love and support and genuine concern that the kids showed Linda. And she was tremendously blessed by that. Mr. Speaker, this is still a tender memory for me. I understand some of the challenges that you and Mrs. Bedke face together and the strength and the courage and the faith that it takes to go through what you're going through. I understand that another treatment took place yesterday, and that's another one down in this process. In the same way that Linda was blessed by those children, it is my desire that you be blessed by the gentle ladies and the gentle men of this body. As you can see, there are many here wearing the color that represents the battle against breast cancer. We extend our friendship, our goodwill, our prayers, and our support to you, Mr. Speaker, to Mrs. Bedke, and to a new friend, Ms. Ann Lobes of Twin Falls. Ms. Lobes is undergoing surgery today as we speak. It is my hope that you will be strengthened and comforted and encouraged by the recognition, the support, and the prayers of the members of this body. I would like to recognize some visitors in the gallery today, in this chamber. Cindy Jessinger, Lee Barron, my friends who helped put some of this together, Trevor Thorpe. From the American Cancer Society, Jonathan Finney, Peggy Schultz, Megan Records, Josh Campbell, Lindsay Nelson, Julie Washington, who are bringing flowers in, Mr. Speaker, and from the Idaho affiliate of Susan G. Komen for the cure. They provided the pink ribbons that are being passed out right now. Molly Nota, Jennifer Poole, Liz Brody. Please welcome them to our session today. Mr. Speaker, Mrs. Bedke, Ms. Lobes, and to the members and family members of this body who have endured cancer, who are enduring cancer, and who are cancer-free. May God bless you and keep you, and may He make His face shine upon you. Be blessed.
Thank you, good gentlemen. These are hard times, and I'm sure that many of you have been touched by the C word, as we have. As a family, it's a family-changing experience. I am not, I don't need service. That's what I always thought. I didn't need to be the recipient. I prefer giving rather than receiving, but I've come to understand that in order to complete the circle, there has got to be a gracious receiver, and for that, I am attempting to be that, and for your thoughts, and the prayers and all the gestures, I truly thank you. You've caught me off guard, and I would have been better prepared, but because I'm loath to be unprepared. But thank you sincerely. I know that Sarah would want me to extend you those same thanks, as would all of the members of our family. And words are inadequate at this moment, and so I'm going to stop right now with again my sincere thanks to each member. And I know that there had to be some co-conspirators here, and I owe you one. So. Thank you again. So is it all right if we go into order now? The House will be in order. Prior to going at ease, the House was at the end of the third order. The House will now advance to the fourth order of business. Considerations of messages from the Governor and the Senate. The House is at the fourth order.
From the Office of the Governor, there's a certificate of appointment. Know all men that pursuant to provision section 59917 Idaho Code, Christy Perry, State Representative, District 11, seat B, Canyon County, State of Idaho, has nominated Chris Smith of Caldwell, Idaho, to perform the duties of this office temporarily as acting State Representative, District 11, seat B. Now, therefore, I, C.L. Butch Otter, Governor of the State of Idaho, by the virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby appoint Chris Smith of Caldwell, Idaho, to the office of acting State Representative, District 11, seat B, for a term commencing February 21st, 2013 and continuing until February 27th. In testimony whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the Great Seal of the State of Idaho at the Capitol in Boise on this 12th day of February in the year of our Lord 2013, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 237th year, by the Governor, C.L. Butch Otter, and Secretary of State, Ben Usursa.
Welcome to the body, Representative Smith. The certificate of appointment for Representative Chris Smith will be filed in the office of the Chief Clerk, and the oath of office has been administered.
From the Office of the Governor, February 20th, 2013. Dear Mr. Speaker, my letter sent February 19th, 2013 incorrectly stated that I had allowed the following bills to become law without my signature. I have the honor to advise you that I have signed and have transmitted to the Secretary of State the following House bills to wit: House Bill 5 and House Bill 16. As always, C.L. Butch Otter, Governor of Idaho.
The journal for February 20th has been corrected.
From the Office of the Governor, February 20th, 2013. Dear Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to advise you that I have signed today and am transmitting to the Secretary of State the following House bills to wit: House Bill 14, 15, 22, 23, 19, 21, 32, 33, 35, 37, 39, and 85. As always, C.L. Butch Otter, Governor of Idaho.
The House will now advance to the fifth order of business, report of standing committees. The House is at the fifth order. Good gentleman from District 14.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Request unanimous consent to pull Senate Bill 1027 back to the Education Committee, if I may explain.
The gentleman has the floor to explain prior to my placing the question to the body.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, this is a bill that it appears to me that we're getting some additional information on that would be helpful to the committee to understand this. We're getting some information in the back on from some working groups that may not have been consistent with some of the things we heard in committee, and would like the opportunity for the committee to hear this additional information before we proceed forward.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request to pull Senate Bill 1027 back to the Education Committee. Is there an objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Thank you.
The House is at the fifth order.
February 21st, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration report that we have printed House Concurrent Resolution 11 and House Bills 194, 195, 196, 197, 198, 199, 200, and 201. Will's Chairman.
House Concurrent Resolution 11 and House Bill 195 will be referred to State Affairs Committee. House Bill 194 will be referred to the Commerce and Human Resource Committee. House Bill 196, 197, 198, as well as House Bill 199 will be referred to the Business Committee. House Bill 200 and 201 will be referred to the Revenue Tax Committee.
February 21st, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration report that we have enrolled House Bills 115, 40, 81, 84, 83, and 17. Will's Chairman.
House Bills 115, 40, 81, 84, 83, and House Bill 17 will be signed by the Speaker and returned to the Senate President for his signature.
February 21st, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Judiciary Rules and Administration report that we have transmitted enrolled House Bills 19, 20, 24, 52, 21, 25, 87, 39, 85, 32, 33, 35 to the Governor at 11:44 a.m. as of this date, February 20th, 2013. Will's Chairman. February 20th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on State Affairs report that we have had under consideration House Bills 121 and 159 and recommend that they do pass. Lurcher, Chairman.
House Bill 121 and 159 will be filed for second reading.
February 20th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Environment, Energy, and Technology report that we have had under consideration House Bill 185 and recommend that it do pass. Raybould, Chairman.
House Bill 185 will be filed for second reading.
February 20th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Agricultural Affairs report that we have had under consideration House Bills 113 and 175 and recommend that they do pass. Andrus, Chairman.
House Bill 113 and 175 will be filed for second reading.
February 20th, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Transportation and Defense report that we have had under consideration House Bills 117, 118, and 168 and Senate Bill 1044 and recommend that they do pass. Palmer, Chairman.
House Bill 117, 118, and 168, as well as Senate Bill 1044, will be filed for second reading.
February 21st, 2013. Mr. Speaker, will your Committee on Revenue and Taxation report that we have had under consideration House Bills 184 and 187 and recommend that they do pass. Collins, Chairman.
House Bills 184 and 187 will be filed for second reading. Without objection, the House will now advance to the eighth order of business, introduction, first reading, and reference of bills and joint resolutions. The House is at the eighth order.
In the House of Representatives, House Bill number 202 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to the Idaho Administrative Procedure Act, amending Section 675221 to provide additional requirements relating to the public notice of proposed rulemaking and to make technical corrections, amending Section 675224 to provide additional requirements relating to the notice of adoption of a pending rule and to make technical corrections and providing a sunset date. House Bill number 203 by Appropriations Committee, an act relating to the appropriation to the Department of Health and Welfare for the divisions of independent counsels, indirect support services, and public health services, amending Section 1, Chapter 230, Laws of 2012, to revise the appropriation for fiscal year 2013, providing legislative intent and declaring an emergency. House Bill number 204 by Revenue and Taxation Committee, an act relating to property taxation, amending Section 63602W Idaho Code to revise provisions relating to the site improvements as business inventory exempt from property taxation, to provide that certain transfers shall not be considered a conveyance to a third party, to provide for a determination of the amount of exemption, to provide for application for assessment, to provide for notification by the County Board of Equalization to the taxpayer and county assessor relating to its decision and assessment, to provide for appeal, for notification of change in eligibility, and to make technical corrections, declaring an emergency and providing retroactive application. House Bill number 205 by Education Committee, an act relating to education, amending Section 33-1004A Idaho Code to remove language referring to a certain time period. House Bill number 206 by Education Committee, an act relating to public charter schools, amending Section 33-1002 Idaho Code to revise provisions relating to the state support of special programs, amending Section 33-5208 to provide correct code reference, to establish provisions relating to the distribution of facilities funds to public charter schools, to provide for the use of funds, to provide for a calculation for a reimbursement claim, to define a term and establish provisions relating to an authorizer fee, amending Chapter 52, Title 33 Idaho Code by the addition of a new Section 335214 to establish a public charter school authorizers fund, to provide for the deposit of certain monies and to provide for the use of such monies, and amending Section 33-1619 to provide correct code references. House Bill number 207 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to public records, amending Section 9-340B Idaho Code to provide the public records of security systems in place to protect public buildings and their occupants are exempt from disclosure. House Bill number 208 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to livestock, amending Section 25-232 Idaho Code to remove an archaic code reference, to impose a fee on certain livestock, to provide a procedure, to provide a manner in which the fee is fixed, to provide for the deposit of fees in the Idaho Sheep and Goat Health Board account, to provide for the transmittal of the proper share of such monies to the Board of Directors of each animal damage control district, and to make technical corrections. House Bill number 209 by State Affairs Committee, an act relating to motor carriers, amending Section 49301 Idaho Code to revise provisions relating to operating a commercial motor vehicle, and amending Section 672901B to establish provisions relating to operating a motor carrier and certain hours of operation.
House Bills 202, 203, 204, 205, 206, 207, 208, and House Bill 209 will be referred to the Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee for printing. Without objection, the House will now advance to the 10th order of business, second reading of bills and joint resolutions. The House is at the 10th order.
In the House of Representatives, Senate Bill 1028 by Education Committee regarding education. House Bill 153 by Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee regarding jury selection and service. Senate Bill 1016 by Judiciary and Rules Committee regarding producer licensing. Senate Bill 1017 by Judiciary and Rules Committee regarding Magistrates Division. House Bill 93 by Resources and Conservation Committee regarding forest and range fires. House Bill 128 by Resources and Conservation Committee regarding water. House Bill 129 by Resources and Conservation Committee regarding irrigation districts. House Bill 130 by Resources and Conservation Committee regarding irrigation district elections. House Bill 132 by Resources and Conservation Committee regarding forest and range fire. House Bill 139 by Revenue and Taxation Committee regarding income taxes, partnership income.
Senate Bill 1028, House Bill 153, Senate Bills 1016 and 1017, House Bill 93, 128, 129, 130, 132, and House Bill 139 will be filed for third reading. The House will now advance to the 11th order of business, third reading of bills and joint resolutions. The House is at the 11th order. The House will have under consideration House Bill 140. Good lady from District 33.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for unanimous consent that we dispense with further reading of House Bill 140.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good lady has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good ladies and gentlemen of the floor, House Bill 140 passed out of committee with unanimous consent to bring it to the floor. What House Bill 140 does is it is legislation that will recognize the governments of Indian tribes within the state of Idaho as governmental partners in providing essential services to citizens of the state of Idaho. House Bill 140 will treat tribal government property as other governmental property is treated. It will provide a clear tax exemption for property owned by the tribal government within the boundaries of the tribe's reservation within the state. It does not provide an exemption for property owned by individual members of the tribe, nor does it exempt property owned by the tribe outside of the boundaries of the tribe's reservation. The question of whether property owned by the Indian tribe whether it is exempt from tax is a complicated question. But on the basis of this exemption, we found not only in treaties but other engagements between the tribes in the United States prior to statehood, but also within the Idaho Constitution itself, where we find people of the state of Idaho do agree and forever disclaim all right and title to the unappropriated public lands lying within the boundaries thereof, and to all lands lying within said limits owned or held by the Indian or Indian tribes. That's found in Article 21, Section 19 of the Idaho Constitution. House Bill 140 provides confirmation of the public policy expressed in Idaho's Constitution, and that is that we disclaim any right or title to tax lands owned by the Indian tribes. It disclaims the right to tax lands owned by an Indian tribe within the boundaries of its own reservation within the state of Idaho, and affords such property the same tax treatments that is afforded to non-tribal government property. It provides fair treatment of governmentally owned property. It does not provide an exemption for land owned by the tribe outside its presently existing reservation boundaries. And I'd like to just state again that this did pass committee with a unanimous consent, and I would ask for your green light.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 140 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 64 aye, 3 nay, 3 absent and excused. House Bill 140 has passed the House. Is there correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 140 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 141. The gentleman from District 14.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that we cease the reading of House Bill 141.
You've all heard the request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speakers and members of the House. Maybe a little comment before I talk about the bill. The state of Idaho has been blessed in that they have found natural gas reserves in southwest Idaho. But with that find comes new challenges and questions, and how we do things needs to change and adjust because it's new to the state of Idaho. This resource is new to the state of Idaho. What this bill does is try to answer one of the questions that arose this past year, that being whether or not the hole in the ground, from the ground level down, that well that goes into the ground, whether or not that is taxable or not. Well, if we look at what the state of Idaho does in other issues like the home, your well on your house, we don't tax from the ground down. Agricultural wells, we don't tax from the ground down. The hole in a mine, we don't tax the hole that goes into the mine where we get the gold and the ore and the silver. So what this bill does is try to say we treat these new gas wells the same way by saying from the ground down they're exempt. It's a simple bill, but it has a lot of questions and comments with it. And I think that some of you have received some letters from a county commissioner in Washington County and some other things that are being passed around about some concerns with this bill, and I understand those concerns. But I also understand that for the state of Idaho, I think this is good policy. I don't want to start down the road where we start taxing home wells, agricultural wells, and mine shafts. I think this is congruent or similar to what we do with other taxable property in the state of Idaho. It's a good policy to have in the state of Idaho to exempt those wells from the ground down, and I hope that you can support me in doing so. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there further debate? The gentleman from District 6.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the good gentleman yield for question?
Gentleman yield.
Gentleman yield.
Gentleman yield.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good gentleman. So the value of the property, however, is increased with or when there's mineral being extracted. So is that recognized in the category evaluation of the property that the well sits in?
Gentleman from 14.
Mr. Speaker and good gentleman, that depends on the assessor and the situations. It varies. But I'll give you an example. When you look at a piece of property and you take the whole, you know, unless those mineral rights have been sold off, we taxed it from the top of the ground to the center of the earth, I guess you could say. And as those reserves are found, for example, if you own a piece of property those reserves are found on, the value of your property is now higher because everybody wants it if they know there's gas there. So I would say, yeah, the value goes up on the real side. I think an example, too, maybe easier to understand is if your home, if you have a piece of property and you put a well out there, a domestic well so you can build a house, the value of that piece of property goes up because that well's there. Now, in all cases, does it drive the property up? I would say maybe not. What if the well's dry and you have a big, hole in the ground that's a dry well? I would say that probably diminishes the real property. But we're talking about the real property side, though, and not the well in the ground.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there further debate? The gentleman from District 16.
Thank you, Mr.
19.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To debate against the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
To give y'all a little bit more background about this particular bill, what was said in committee was that the drilling of the well was attempted to be taxed as personal property, which I disagree with. We should not tax the drilling of a well as personal property. But what this bill does is it exempts it from real property taxation. So I'm not clear on why this is written in the way that it is if the issue, particularly in Payette County, was that they were attempting to tax the well as personal property. By exempting it from real property, when in Idaho code, improvements means all buildings, structured, manufactured homes, modular buildings, erected upon or affixed to land, fences, water, ditches constructed for mining, manufacturing or irrigation purposes, fixtures, or floating homes, and it goes on. This exemption, for me, is a concern not because I don't want oil and gas in Idaho. We need oil and gas in Idaho. But let me point out that all the world needs oil and gas. The entire world is dependent upon oil and gas, and that is not going away. 9 out of 10 states in the lower 48 tax property based on those wells. They either have a local property tax based on that well, or they have some other tax based on that well. Additionally, our statutes that are going in place for the development of our oil and gas industry, which is important to Idaho, are based off of Wyoming statutes. And if you look at Wyoming statutes, the severance tax in Wyoming is 6%, not 2.5%. Plus in Wyoming, they charge local ad valorem sale or property tax on their wells. That's important. We all know that this body might have trouble raising taxes in the future if we needed to. For something that occurred in Payette County, we're making an entire statute change that potentially has grave consequences for the future of revenue generation in our oil and gas industry. The oil and gas industry knows that the market is driving prices. The oil and gas industry knows that if we have reserves of gas, we are going to need it. And it's reasonable to say that eliminating this exemption and keeping our severance tax at 2.5% instead of 6% or 4% like it is in Utah or 4.6% like it is in Colorado. I mean, the saying is, why buy the cow when you can have the milk for free? I feel like we're giving away a product that our state could benefit from dramatically. So with that, I ask you to vote no. Thank you.
Is there further debate? The gentleman from District 2.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to debate this bill because I've concluded that this is an area that greatly needs better ad valorem and severance tax analysis. I think Idaho is way behind the curve in what needs to be done, the means to do it. The bill before you, while not incorrect at all, and actually I am going to vote in support of it, I think is simplistic. At least the problem that it attempted to correct was simplistic because it attempted to tax a well without being able to look at the reserve in the income which the well produces, which is what creates value. The cost of a dry hole is the same as a cost of a good well. So what really needs to be re-examined is what Idaho severance tax is. Nevada taxes oil and gas severance or production proceeds 2 to 5%. Oregon, 6% less a credit for any ad valorem taxes. Utah, 3 to 5%. Wyoming, the good gentleman indicated 6%. My information indicates 8%. Montana, generally in the 9 to 14% range. This area cries out for additional laws, analysis, and future thinking. I believe that it's appropriate to pass this bill at this time and then study this area further. So I would ask your green light on this bill.
Is there further debate? The lady from District 33.
Mr. Chairman, would the good gentleman from District 14 yield to a question?
Will the gentleman yield?
Gentleman yields.
Gentleman yields.
Just really quickly.
Good lady, could you adjust your microphone a little, please?
I just was curious, is this type of property an operating property? Or I just wondered how the county placed this property on the rolls, on the real property rolls, versus the operating property rolls.
Gentleman from 14.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good lady, it's owned by an oil company, so it would not be an operating property. It's not a utility.
Thank you.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, would the gentleman from District 14 care to close the debate?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll try. This is kind of a little more confusing than a lot of us realize. Remember, we're exempting from the ground down. Anything above the ground is taxable. And we tax what comes out of the well. And the good gentleman from 2 brings up a good point. As we go down this new world of natural gas and these things, we're going to have to look at some of the things we do and how we adjust it. But the way we do it today is when it comes out of the ground, we charge a 2.5% severance tax on it. And it's sent to the counties and the cities, the schools, and the state gets a part of that. It's divided up, and that was a bill we passed last year that was pretty contentious. But having said that, as we go down this road, we will start adjusting things to make it work, and that's why I opened the way I did. It's necessary, it's good, I think it's what we need to do. I would hate for us to see a bill next year trying to exempt agricultural wells and home wells because we don't exempt these. I think it's good policy for the state of Idaho, and I hope you can support it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 141 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change his vote?
Okay, that's good.
We're good. The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 52 aye, 15 nay, 3 absent and excused. House Bill 141 has passed the House. Is there correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 141 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 163. Good lady from District 30.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for unanimous consent to dispense with further reading of House Bill 163.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good lady has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good members of the House. House Bill 163 updates the process by which teacher contracts are delivered. It establishes criteria for the return of those contracts each year so that the school district can know in ample time who is returning for employment, and teachers can know in ample time what jobs might be available. It aligns the return of the contracts with master agreement dates. It will also allow the school districts to send those contracts via email return receipt requested rather than through the U.S. mail return receipt requested, anticipating a savings. On lines 34 through 39, you will note that if a contract is sent by email and is not returned in the allotted time, the district is then required to send it through the U.S. mail return receipt requested. We believe we have consensus with all stakeholders on this. It has unanimous support of the Education Committee, and I ask for your support here as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 163 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Have all the members voted?
Yes.
Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 67 ayes, 0 nay, 3 absent and excused. House Bill 163 has passed the House. Is there correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 163 will be transmitted to the Senate. The gentleman from District 14.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, the sponsor of House Bill 177 is waiting for some additional information, and so allowing that opportunity. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I'd ask unanimous consent that House Bill 177 be placed at the bottom of the third reading calendar.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, House Bill 177 will be placed at the bottom of the third reading calendar. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 109. Good lady from District 17.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask for to cease further reading of House Bill 109.
You've all heard the request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good lady has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the body, this is a simple bill. House Bill 109 clarifies 2 of 5 positions on the Board of Pharmacy. 1 position has substantial experience in retail pharmacy. 1 position has substantial experience in hospital pharmacy. What fills out the board is a member of the public and 2 pharmacists of unspecified experience, so we can have the freedom to address things like geographic representation. There will be no impact on the current board since there is at least one retail pharmacist and one hospital pharmacist. What you have before you is a result of parties affected having had a hand in crafting and contemplating language. With that, I ask your green light.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 109 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will cast their votes. Representative Bateman. Have all the members voted? Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 67 aye, 0 nay, 3 absent and excused. House Bill 109 has passed the House. Is there correction to title? Hearing none, House Bill 109 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration Senate Bill 1010. Good gentleman from District 6.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that we dispense with further reading of the bill.
You've all heard the unanimous consent request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the good gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill comes from the Health and Welfare Committee at the request of the Department of Health and Welfare Medicaid Division. This bill removes from statute specific benefit limitations on mental health services. Those benefit limitations were put into statute in years past in order to limit the cost. The Department of Health and Welfare and Medicaid is now in process of contracting for a managed care management of their behavioral health program. One of the tenets of managed care is that you match the benefit and the services to the needs of the patient in order to have the best, most efficient use of the resources. For example, if you have a benefit, historically have a benefit limit of 6 hours a week, but by delivering 8 hours a week of services, you may decrease the need for medication or the need for hospitalization or emergency room use. It is a wise expense. By this bill and removal of the language on page 2, this allows our managed care contractor to manage the patient to the best financial and clinical outcome and not be held to a statutory benefit limit. Mr. Speaker, I ask for a green light on this.
Is there further debate? Good gentleman from District 15.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a question of the good gentleman from 6.
Will the gentleman from 6 yield to a question?
Mr. Speaker, I yield.
The gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good gentleman. I see in taking off, I understand the removal of the restrictions in order to do managed care, but I don't see anything in here referring to managed care. The only thing that I'm aware of is a companion statute, I think it's 56263, that basically told the department to prepare a plan for managed care. But so far I haven't really, I'd feel a little bit more comfortable if there was some reference in here tying these changes to the managed care program. Can you help me with that?
Someone from 6.
Mr. Speaker and good gentlemen, I do not know where there is reference to managed care. I will tell you, however, that there was an RFP released, and it is currently in the appeal phase before final award. And the intent is to have that managed care contract begin work after the 1st of July. Mr. Speaker, I just don't know where else in statute it's referred to, and certainly the appropriation language for the Medicaid plan would allow that.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, the debate is closed. The question is, shall Senate Bill 1010 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members shall cast their votes. Has every member voted? Representative Bateman. Does any member wish to change his vote? The clerk will lock the machine and record the roll. The roll call shows 61 ayes, 6 nay, 3 absent and excused. Senate Bill 1010 has passed the House. Is there a correction of title? Hearing none, Senate Bill 1010 will be transmitted to the Senate. The House will now have under consideration House Bill 107. Good lady from District 29.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that further reading of House Bill 107 be dispensed with.
You've all heard the request. Is there an objection? Hearing none, the lady has the floor.
Thank you. House Bill 107 provides another way of voting in person at the elections office prior to Election Day. Although 75% of Idaho voters go to the polls on Election Day to vote, over 80,000 voted early at the courthouse or elections office. In fact, of the 2012 general election, over 169,000 people voted by absentee ballot, 88,000 by mail, and 81,000 in person. Currently, when a person votes in person, he or she is required to follow the same procedure for absentee voting by mail. This person is required to, and on this handout I handed out, you can follow along, and this handout was provided by the Canyon County Clerk when he came to testify for this bill in committee. So right now we are required, 1, to fill out an absentee ballot request form. 2, you vote the ballot. 3, you put the voted ballots in a secrecy envelope. 4, you put that secrecy envelope in an affidavit envelope. 5, you sign the affidavit on the back of the envelope. 6, you deposit the ballot in a ballot box. This legislation would allow early voting sites to follow the same procedures that polling places use on Election Day. 1, the clerk would look up the voter's name in the statewide voter registration system and print out a label with the voter's information on it. 2, the voter would sign the label and it would be placed in a poll book. 3, he or she then votes the ballot. 4, the voter then simply puts the ballot in a locked ballot box. The ballots will be kept in a locked and sealed ballot box, and the ballot box will not be opened until Election Day, when the ballots are to be counted. No results will be released until all the polls are closed throughout the state. And I know there were some concerns about security, so I called the Bannock County Elections Office to make sure what we do. And I was told that the early elections ballot boxes are put inside a vault at night with 24-hour security camera monitoring. And I found out there were other county election offices or clerks had similar procedures. This legislation makes these early voting procedures optional, but not required. The county clerk can still continue to use the absentee ballot envelopes if he or she chooses to. Many small counties who have little early voting activity will probably continue using the envelopes. But this procedure will speed up the process for larger counties and will reduce the waiting line at the early voting site. To use this early voting procedure, a county will be required to have access to the statewide voter registration system at the early voting site. When a voter appears, the clerk will record in the system that the person has voted, and that information will be printed in the poll book so the person cannot also vote at the polls on Election Day. In addition to making it easier for the voters, it does away with the requirement to fold the ballots. Folded ballots create problems for optical scan tabulation systems. Having folded ballots reduces the speed of the tabulator to 1/3 of the speed for ballots that have not been folded. Using the envelopes for all absentee and early voting ballots also requires the county to hire more people just to remove the ballots from the envelopes and prepare them for processing. In the 2012 general election, Ada County had 90 people just opening envelopes and removing ballots. Canyon County had about 60 people doing the same thing. This legislation will make it easier for the votes. It will speed up the process and not compromise any of the security. I urge your yes light. Thank you.
Is there further debate? Is there further debate? The lady from District 4.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to debate against the bill.
Lady has the floor.
House Bill 107, which is referred to as early voting bill, will not apply uniformly and consistently to all Idaho counties. For those who have access to the Idaho statewide voter registration system and that count ballots at a central location, this could apply, only if they choose. But the funding and training required would cause many of them to opt out. The vulnerability of our statewide voter registration system could be in jeopardy by the input of thousands of voters' information data from all over the state by hundreds of operators not trained in its use. Remember, in addition to voting, thousands will also be registering. Again, the time periods for input on page 1, line 17 says it could be any time on or before the third Monday before the election. This is troubling to many. Again, what happens if the system drops offline? If you've ever accessed it, and I have, sometimes it does, and it has before. We talk about security. On page 2, line 6, the proposed new section does not define detailed plan. And if the first plan submitted by a clerk does not pass, what's the time frame for resubmitting it? I believe this is insufficient guidance for county clerks. What if a county clerk fails to submit a plan, or if a plan is merely a statement of the statutory minimums? How can the Secretary of State know the details concerning locations in 44 counties and all the security required for each? You have only the appearance of security by using locks and seals on ballot boxes. Even worse, the bill fails to address what is to happen if it appears the integrity of the ballot box has been breached. That is, the seal is broken. We were told in committee nothing would happen. The ballots would be counted. This bill is window dressing to speed up the process in large counties. It does nothing to ensure the integrity of our elections. In my county, we had a clerk who failed to keep a poll book for early voters. The secure location was his office, door unlocked. He was a candidate. No penalty ever assessed or enforced. This early voting with no envelopes containing affidavit signatures is one more step in expanding possible voter fraud. And no penalties are ever expressed within it. It's all about getting it done fast, not the integrity of our elections. And I urge a no vote on 107. Thank you.
Is there further debate? Good gentleman from 24.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the good lady from 29 yield to a question?
Lady from 29 yield.
I will yield.
Lady yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good lady, on line 6 of page 2, referenced a detailed plan for security of the ballots shall it be submitted. Does that mean that each county would submit a separate plan, or is that a statewide plan that is overseen by the Secretary of State's office?
Good lady from 29.
Mr. Speaker and good representative, thank you for the question. The way I understood it, this bill was brought by the Secretary of State's office, and talking with the gentleman who brought it, that each county would submit a detailed plan instead of one for the whole state.
Gentleman 24.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the good lady yield further?
Lady yield further?
I will yield.
Lady yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good lady. So then potentially we have the possibility that the Secretary of State would have to sign off on a number of separate plans for each county in the state, and by what standard would then those be measured?
Good lady from 29.
Mr. Speaker and the good representative, that since the Secretary of State's office brought this, I assume that they are prepared to deal with how they have to sign off on each one, and they would probably have qualifications and would have to inform the counties before a detailed plan would be submitted.
Gentleman 24.
One final question.
Lady yield further?
I will yield.
Lady yields.
Looking down on line 9 where it says at a minimum the following procedures would be followed, and it identifies 4 procedures, but it doesn't say whether these 4 things would restrict the county from further streamlining the process to eliminate further time delay and thereby potentially impacting the security and the integrity of the ballot process. Is there any limit on what the counties can do here? They can submit a plan that further reduces this process in terms of time?
Lady for 29.
Mr. Speaker and good representative, that maybe somebody else from the committee, but I do not remember them saying in committee about what you have questioned. I would guess that they could put down other restrictions or limits, but nothing was mentioned in committee.
To debate briefly against the bill, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman 24 has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, after the questions, good members of the House, it appears to me that this moves significantly in the direction of speed, but by reducing the integrity of the balloting process. These are very, very serious considerations, and I would urge your no vote. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there further debate? Gentleman 28.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Debate against the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen. There's a cliche around this year that this is not an issue that I'll fall on my sword for, but as we continually tamper with our election laws, I'm a little troubled, and it seems to me that the more we do, the more we invite the possibility of voter fraud. And I think this is one instance. Let me give you a scenario. Say you have an incumbent county clerk. The clerk is running for re-election, and he has a formidable opponent. Now, instead of ballots that have been early voted on in a secure envelope, they're laying open in a box. He has the key. What do you think goes through his mind? He may be in a county with no security camera, and he's worried, and he thinks it might be a close election. The indications are it might be a close election. What do you think goes through his mind? I just think that the more security that we can have and more integrity in our voting, the better we are. That is a right that we have that we should guard, even though there's a little inconvenience and a little expense. And I appreciate the counties wanted to streamline and save money. But when it comes to voting, I don't think we should compromise. Thank you.
Is there further debate? Good gentleman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm highly in favor of this bill. The voter fraud is virtually non-existent. Study after study has shown that voter fraud is virtually non-existent. But what we have had is we have had difficulty handling the quantity of voters, people standing in line for an hour with a couple kids, having to get to work, having to get home, and therefore failing to vote. And I think that this is a reasonable accommodation to speed up the process and make it so that there is not an impairment to the ability to vote, which is, after all, the primary right that citizens have. I think the concern about fraud should be tempered by the reality of the data. And so I think that this is a good accommodation to assist people in voting.
Is there further debate? Good gentleman from 8.
Mr. Chairman, I rise today to debate in favor and support of this bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you. I wasn't going to debate this bill, but after I've heard some of these other comments and questions, I do want to assure the body that from everything I have ever seen in local government, they operate with the utmost integrity. And here I do not feel like this is going to reduce or restrict in any way the integrity of the ballot box. In fact, it is going to place those ballots in a locked and sealed container. Today, those ballots are kept in an envelope, and that container in most counties is put away and locked in the vault at night by a deputy clerk. And most clerks do not handle the ballot box themselves, especially when they're on the ballot. They had signed that duty to a deputy clerk. And so I would ask that you support this bill and give it your yes vote.
Is there further debate? Good lady, I can't see your number.
8.
Good lady from 8. Floor is yours.
I'm glad, Mr. Speaker, I guess that's where you are.
Pretty scary, huh?
I'm glad somebody else can't see the darn numbers. But anyway, I'm afraid I was a little bit amused, and I rise in opposition to the bill. And one reason was the comment that, gee, fraud is non-existent. Well, maybe it's non-existent because it's so carefully and craftily done that nobody picks up on it. And I think we need all the protection we can get.
Is there further debate? Good lady from 5.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to just make a few comments in favor of the bill.
Lady has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think when I look at voting, I'm not so concerned about how long it takes, but I do think we have to have confidence in the process. And as I read the bill, where the plan must be submitted to the Secretary of State's office, I happen to have a great deal of confidence in that office and the job that they have done for us in running elections. So I don't have any doubt that they will carefully look at these plans, and if there's any question about the security of the process proposed require changes, I think we can certainly vote for this and think that it's not going to compromise our integrity.
Is there further debate? Good gentleman from 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to debate the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you. I would just ask the body to reference the document that was handed out in regards to what is going on today currently and what we're trying to change here. You can currently go in and vote absentee in person, and we're complicating this a little bit, I believe. We had considerable debate in committee, and I was satisfied completely with the final conclusion of the vote, and I don't believe there were too many no votes. It was not a roll call, but we did have a great debate on this. There's some things that when we vote today, you go in there, they give you a whole packet. You've got to fold your ballot up. You've got to put it into the ballot box after you voted. What this does is simply avoids having to have a separate envelope to fold your ballot. You're allowed to just put your ballot in the ballot box. There's not much difference in what we're trying to do here except save the extra envelope, the ability to not have to fold the ballot to put it into an envelope. It saves time. I mean, I know that time is overrated, but you're not going to compromise the integrity of the voting process by voting for this bill. And I wish I would have brought my notes with me today on this because I had some much more in detailed notes, but I did forget them. But please refer to the document that was given. You're still going to have a secure ballot put into the box. The box is the same box that you use today, and it's not going to be compromised. I have tremendous confidence in the Secretary of State's proposal here, and I think that the counties certainly are capable of monitoring those boxes as they do today. So I would ask for your green light on this, and I think the committee did vet this quite well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, would the good lady from 29 care to close?
Thank you very much, and thank you for all those who debated. That I'd like to point out some of the counties do have election offices, and the county clerk is not in charge. As the good gentleman from District 8 mentioned, that each county clerk, if they are on the ballot, have to sign an affidavit, and they do not deal with the ballot boxes. So I think if for those who think that the county clerk might be doing election fraud, well, that might be more of an ethical issue, that if you think that, you may want to take it, and here comes the ethics. But I believe that this is a way it can be more efficient, especially for the larger counties in Treasure Valley. I know in Bannock County, we have more people that come in person and vote than request absentee ballots. And I urge your yes vote. And thank you.
Thank you, good lady. Debate is closed. The question is, shall House Bill 107 pass the House? The clerk will unlock the machine and the members will record the roll. Has every member voted?
Agidius?
Does any member wish to change their vote? Clerk will lock the machine, record the roll. 47 ayes, 19 nays, 4 absent and excused. Majority having voted in favor of House Bill 107. House Bill 107 has passed the House. Is there a correction to title? Hearing none, the title is approved. The bill will be transmitted to the Senate. To gentleman from 13.
Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman.
I ask unanimous consent that the remaining bills on the third reading calendar hold their place one legislative day.
Unanimous consent has been requested. Is there objection? Hearing none, remaining bills on the third reading calendar will be held one legislative day. Good lady from 30.
Mr. Speaker, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Lady has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to welcome the Student Council from Hillcrest High School and Mrs. Crabtree, their advisor, visiting from Idaho Falls. Thank you for being here.
Without objection, the House will now advance to the 15th order of business. Announcements. The House is at the 15th order of business. The gentleman from 26.
I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Gentleman has the floor.
I believe I neglected to say that the pink ribbons were provided, and 2 very nice pink ribbons for the Speaker and his wife were provided by the Idaho affiliate of the Susan G. Komen for the Cure. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Good lady from 26.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House minority will hold a caucus at 3:30 today.
Are there further announcements? Good gentleman from 22.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The majority party will caucus at 3:30 today.
Are there further announcements? The gentleman from 2.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to announce that on the 4th floor, the Open Arms Pregnancy Care Center and Real Choices Clinic has got a booth up there. That's the Crisis Pregnancy Care Center, of which I'm the chairman, and invite you up to talk to the director, Nancy Teff. Thank you.
Are there further announcements? Hearing none, the clerk may read.
Following are the Standing Committee meeting announcements for this afternoon. Business Committee will meet this afternoon at 1:30, East Wing, Room 41, Henderson Chairman. Commerce and Human Resources Committee will meet this afternoon at 1:30, East Wing, Room 5, Hartkin Chairman. Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee will meet this afternoon at 1:30, East Wing, Room 42, Wills Chairman. Resources and Conservation Committee will meet this afternoon at 1:30, East Wing, Room 40, Denny Chairman. For tomorrow morning, Friday, February 22nd, Education Committee will not meet, DeMordaunt Chairman. Health and Welfare Committee will meet tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., East Wing, Room 20, Wood Chairman. Revenue and Taxation Committee will not meet tomorrow morning, Collins Chairman. State Affairs Committee will meet tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., East Wing, Room 40, Lurcher Chairman. And then I have a few for tomorrow afternoon. Environment, Energy, and Technology Committee will not meet Friday afternoon, Raybould Chairman. Local Government Committee will not meet tomorrow afternoon, Barrett Chairman. Transportation and Defense Committee will not meet tomorrow afternoon, Palmer Chairman.
Without objection, the House will now advance the 16th order of business. Adjournment. The House is at the 16th order of business. Good gentleman from 13.
Mr. Speaker, I ask that we adjourn until 11 a.m. Friday, February 22nd, 2013.
Mr. Speaker.
Good gentleman from 6.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I second that motion.
Thank you, good gentleman. For the motion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes, and the House will be adjourned until the hour of 11 a.m. Friday, February 22nd, 2013.
Provided by the Idaho State Broadcasters Association, with additional support from the Union Pacific Foundation, the Idaho Association of Counties, the Association of Idaho Cities, the Idaho Cable Telecommunications Association, and your contributions to the Idaho Public Television Endowment.